Welcome back to Unit 9. Today we're going to be talking about constructing histograms when we have other graphs in hand. So we're going to look at one example and then you're going to try a whole bunch on your own. Let's take a look at our only example. So here we are at example A, and it says Mrs. Donald recorded the amount of time it took her students to take a test. The class had 20 students. Create a histogram to show the same data. So she's made a circle graph about the test takers, and we are going to turn that into a histogram. So the first thing that we need to do is pull the important information out of the problem, and we need to know that the class had 20 students. That's the important part of this problem. If we know how many students there are total, then we can figure out how much goes in each column. So the first column that we need to deal with that they've given us, they've laid out the columns for us, is 20 to 29. So we need to figure out how many test takers out of the 20 are between 20 and 29. Now, we only have a circle graph, and circle graphs are going to be given to us in percentages, not numbers. So we're going to have to take those percentages and turn them into numbers of students. But luckily, we know how to do that using proportions from our last unit. So now, let's take a look at how many students are between 20 and 29. So this first section of our pie is between 20 and 24, so those fall between the 20 and 29. And the second part, the 25 to 29, also falls between 20 and 29. So we have these two parts of our circle graph are going to be in the first column of our histogram. So we can see that we have to add the percentages together in order to make the one column. So we have two sections of the pie. We're going to have to add them together to give us the single column in our histogram. So one of our sections is 5% and the other section is 5%. So those two together are 10%. So now we need to set up our proportion to figure out what 10% out of 20 students are. So on one side of our proportion, we're going to have the 20 students total, and we don't know how many our 10% is, but we do know that we're looking for 10% out of 100. So now we set up our proportion. Notice we've got our percentages that we're looking for across the top and then our total across the bottom. So now that we've done that, we're going to cross multiply. 100 times x is 100x, and then 20 times 10 is going to be 200. Then we're going to divide both sides by 100, and x is going to equal 2. And that's going to be our 2 students. So we know that the first section of our column, we're going to have 2 students. Now notice that our histogram doesn't have frequency up the left-hand side. We don't have that marked yet. So since we know that this part is going to be 2 students, we're going to have to wait to see what our highest number is before we determine how we can go up in our frequency. So now we need to take a look at our next column, and that's the 30 to 39. So again, we've got 30 to 34 minutes is between 30 and 39, and 35 to 39 is between 30 and 39. So those two amounts are what we're going to be covering. One of those amounts is 10%, and the other one of those amounts is 5%. So we know that's going to be 15%. Now we can do this one of two ways. We could set up a proportion, and we can say, okay, 15% over 100 is equal to x over 20 and do the same thing that we just did before. However, we could use some of the information that we have gathered to figure out the rest. So we already know that 10% is equal to 2 people. We did that just now when we did the last column. So if we know that 10% is 2 people, half of that, or 5%, is going to be 1 person. So altogether, we know that we have 3 people here in our pie chart. So now we need to move to the next column. Again, you could have set up a proportion. That wouldn't have been wrong, but this way we can use some of the information we've had so we don't have to keep making proportions. So the next column that we're going to be looking at is the 40 to 49 column. So we have to figure out what numbers we have there. So 40 to 44 minutes in the 30% range, that's going to be in our column. And then we have the 45 to 49 is going to be in our column. And again, we've got 20 and 30%. Now again, we could add these together and make a proportion, but we may not have to. If we add 20% and 30% together, we know that's going to give us 50%. So 20% plus our 30% is going to give us 50%. So now we know that 50% is going to be half. What's half of 20? that's going to be 10. So again, we didn't need to use a proportion. We could just use some of the information that we already know and our background knowledge to figure out that answer. So now we're at the last column here, and it's our 50 to 59 range. So again, we're going to go with the last two parts of our circle graph, and we've got 15% and 10%. And again, we figured out that 10% is going to be 2 people, and that we know that 10% is 2 people, with an extra 5% is going to be 3 people, so we know we have 3 people here. 2 plus 3 is going to give us 5 people total for this section. So since the most frequency that we have is going to be 10, we need to make sure that we can go up to 10 on the left-hand side of our table. So let's take a look and make sure that we can do that now. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 places that we can pick numbers. And since we need to go up to 10, the best thing for us to do is to go up by 2s. So 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So now that we've done that, we can do our shading. So 20 to 29, we said there were 2 people. 30 to 39, we said there were 3 people, so that's going to be halfway between the 2 and the 4. 40 to 49, we said that there would be 10 people, so we have to shade all the way up to 10. And then 50 to 59 people, we said that there's going to be 5 people, so again, that's going to be halfway between 6 and 4. And if we've done that correctly, we now have a histogram that matches our circle graph. And we did that with a bunch of different ways. We figured out what a proportion was. We knew that 50% was going to be half, and that half of 20 is 10. We were able to take the information of finding 10%, knowing that was 2 people, and applying it other places. So we used a lot of different methods to figure it out. Could we have done proportions for all 4 parts? Of course we could. But that would be a lot of math, and we may not want to do that, especially if we can use our background knowledge. So it's important that when we're taking one graph and making it another one, that we look at many different ways to accomplish the problem. That brings us to the end of this video. So if you like this video, go ahead and throw us a thumbs up. If you love this video, go ahead and throw us a sub, and we will catch you in the next one.